Join me today to see how I made these spooky bleeding wax melts. There is a lot of trial and error, so let me make the mistakes and you just sit back and relax. As mentioned, not all of my attempts work, so if you just want to see what did work, feel free to skip to the time shown on the screen. So first up, I picked out this pumpkin mould and this heart mould. These hearts will fit within the pumpkin moulds, both height-wise and width-wise, so I think they'll make the perfect melting centres. I put a pan of water on the hob and once it was steaming, added my melting pot and then threw in some wax. Once the wax had melted, I added some fragrance oil, pumpkin spice of course, and colourants in the form of mica powder and liquid dye. I think the mica will add a nice shimmering effect to our wax blood. I tip the wax into the heart moulds and quickly wipe out the melting pot with a kitchen towel. This has to be my top tip when working with wax. Clean it out while it's still warm and melted. The hearts then go into the freezer to use later. Next, I throw in some more wax in the pot and add orange dye. I then pour a thin layer of orange in the bottom of each mould and grab the hearts from the freezer. I add a heart to each pumpkin and found that dipping the hearts in the orange wax made them stay centred within the moulds. Now, this was mistake number 1. The hearts would fit height-wise before, but I didn't account for the surrounding orange, so they were actually too tall. Mistake 2 was forgetting to add fragrance oil to the orange wax, and mistake 3 was not melting enough orange wax to cover all the hearts. So that you guys don't find out about all of these mistakes, I went off camera and deconstructed the pumpkins I just made, cut each heart in half, remelted the orange wax, added more wax, and remembered to add the fragrance oil, and then re-poured them in the same way as earlier, and ended up with these. They demoulded beautifully, it got all of the details, and the red is completely covered. Now to melt one and see how it goes. Well, that was anticlimactic. You can't even tell there was a red centre. The orange did change slightly near the end, but I think that's my next mistake. Having a red melting centre in an orange case, when orange is a mix of red and yellow. It means that the red didn't stand out and just melted into the orange. I also think it would help if the red centres were bigger, so let's go back to the drawing board. Just to mix things up, I found this Pac-Man and Ghost mould and will be using the ghosts. My idea this time is to create a red ghost and then dip it in white wax until the red is completely covered. So I melt down more wax, dye it red, add pumpkin spice fragrance and pour it into the ghost moulds. These again go into the freezer and I left them there for a few hours before melting down more wax and then put the ghosts on toothpicks and attempted to dip them and cover them completely in the white wax. I did end up adding some grey colouring to the wax to get it a little more opaque. Here's what they look like after each dip, and I knew that they would need quite a few layers. And here is the final result. I'm not happy with how these look, so I move on to my final attempt. I cut off the grey wax and trim down the red so it will fit back into the ghost mould, but with some room around for a white case. I then popped these red centres in the freezer. Whilst they were chilling, I melted down all of the offcuts and used them to fill the Pac-Man. They won't look how I want, but they will smell just as good, so there's no need to waste this wax. I melt down more wax, add fragrance oil but no colour this time, and pour a small layer of it in the bottom of each ghost mould. I get the red centres from the freezer, pop them into these moulds and then top them off with more uncoloured wax. Once set, I demoulded them and I'm pretty happy with these. You can see hints of red, especially in the eyes, but I quite like it. And now for the final melting test. This one worked perfectly, although my GoPro battery ran out just before it was fully melted, so I guess my final mistake is not charging my GoPro. So my final tips would be to make the centre as big as possible, but leave enough room to fully cover it. Use a contrasting colour on the outside that won't just meld together with the centre colour, and don't be afraid to experiment. I had a lot of fun trying these out, and it actually gave me ideas for future videos. Maybe I could try different scented centres or multicoloured rainbow melts. If any of these interest you, let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. Alright, so I have a confession. Although I love autumn, I hate pumpkin spice. Well, really I hate cinnamon. So these are all going to friends, and I made this adorable pumpkin pot to hold the melts and take the gift to the next level. If you want to know how I made this, tune in next week.